Welcome to Oxford News This Week. I'm Elgin Nichols.
And I'm Terry Stiles. In this week's news, new buses need plugs, not pumps. Oxford driver accused of hitting and killing a man in Detroit, and warriors create trails for crossroads.
Stay tuned. Learn more about these stories and others. The Oxford News begins right now. Oxford Village Council has agreed to help sponsor this year's Christmas parade, and one council member issued a challenge to the township government to do the same. Last week, council voted 4-1 to approve giving the Oxford Chamber of Commerce $1,500 for the Christmas parade on December 7th. Chamber Executive Director Amy Deshotel says in this year's past, the Christmas parade was always a village, township, DDA, and Parks and Rec event. She said that somehow over the years it has fallen on the Chamber's shoulders. Councilwoman Maureen Helmuth cast the lone dissenting vote.
Last week, the Township Board voted 7-0 to amend the 2019-2021 Law Enforcement Services Agreement with the Oakland County Sheriff's Office to add 1 deputy and 1 patrol investigator. The additions will take effect after the County Board of Commissioners approves the amendment. This will increase the substation's staffing to 19 officers. According to the Sheriff's Sergeant Frank Lenz, second in command of the Oxford substation, the deputy will be added to the afternoon shift, which runs from 3 to 11 p.m. The additional patrol investigator will serve as the substation's second detective.
And last week, the Village Council voted 5-0 to approve the first reading of the proposed 3-page ordinance which would allow for the keeping of chickens on residential properties. The next step is a second reading and council vote whether to adopt it or not. Approval of the first reading followed a public hearing on the topic during which only one resident spoke. Staley suggested people who want to raise chickens should go buy acreage elsewhere. Much of the council's discussion on the subject centered around whether to allow or prohibit slaughtering. The practice is prohibited in the current draft language.
Final site plan approval for a residential development was granted in a 6-0 vote by the Oxford Township Planning Commission last week. Trident Crest 3, in partnership with the Rochester-based Silverado Custom Homes, will be constructing a site condominium development consisting of 49 single-family detached units. The site is bordered by the Crossroads for Youth campus and the Oxford Hills Gold Course.
A 28-year-old Oxford man is facing 2 felony charges for allegedly hitting and killing a man with his vehicle in Detroit on September 11th, then leaving the scene of the accident. Matthew Christian Bockhart was arraigned Saturday in 34th District Court in Romulus on 1 count of reckless driving causing death and 1 count of failure to stop at an accident when at fault, resulting in death. Bond was set at 10% of $50,000 and it has been posted. One of the conditions of Bockhart's release is he must wear a GPS tether. Bockhart is accused of hitting and killing Audrey Blakely, 65. Blakely was standing on the side of the road holding a sign promoting an oil change business when Bockhart allegedly jumped the curb, struck, and killed him near the intersection. The incident was reportedly captured by a surveillance camera.
Oxford resident Mark Skowneski had an unexpected late-night visitor when a massive tree fell over and crashed into his manufactured home. According to Dustin Kruger of Oxford-based Mr. Tree, the tree uprooted due to a combination of rotting base, the moist soil around it, and the fact that it only had half a root system supporting it. The tree smashed through the back corner of the home, which is where his bedroom is located. Fortunately, Skowneski was not injured. He was standing near the front door and got hit by some debris, but part of the ceiling directly above him didn't collapse. That's amazing.
It looks like school buses powered by fossil fuels could be going away of the dinosaurs. Oxford, along with 6 other school districts in Michigan, were awarded a grant that would allow these districts to receive electric school buses. These buses will replace diesel fuels buses that no longer meet the standards the government had placed on diesel emissions. The district will receive 2 electric buses. Officials are hoping for delivery in early November. Most of the funds used to purchase the buses came from the settlement with Volkswagen as part of the violating the Clean Air Act. Final cost to the district for 2 electric buses, 2 charging stations, and infrastructures to provide power to those stations will be over $230,000.
The Oxford Township Board heard 48 minutes of opposition, questions, and concerns expressed by a group of residents from what is commonly referred to as horse country. The discussion was about lead cleanup at the proposed House of Providence foster home. The board decided it needed more information and voted 7-0 to postpone making a decision on applying for a $1 million state grant to clean up the contamination. If approved, the grant would be used to remove soil contaminated by lead shots from years of hunting and shooting on 2 parcels totaling nearly 60 acres, now owned by the House of Providence.
Crossroads for Youth has new hiking trails thanks to the efforts of 175 volunteers. Students and faculty from Rochester University, as well as 2 partnering sponsors, went to the Crossroads for Youth campus ready to make a day of laying wood chips and creating connections with those around them. This day of volunteering was part of the campus-wide initiative called Warriors Serve. Volunteers began working at 8:30 a.m., laying wood chips in a freshly carved out path in the middle of the field, which will be utilized by students, staff, and residents at Crossroads for Youth. For more information on volunteering with or donating to Crossroads for Youth, visit crossroadsforyouth.org.
Last week, Township Planning Commissioners voted 6-0 to grant special land use approval along with preliminary and final site plan approvals for Culver's restaurant. It will be constructed on over a 3-acre parcel of land located on the west side of M24 between Tractor Supply Company and Oxford Bank Mortgage Center. Wow, that's going to be fun.
Oxford resident Jeff Morrison has been a graphic artist for over 30 years, and one project he started 4 years ago is finally paying off. Morrison, author of Guardian of Detroit, architectural sculpture in the Motor City, recently found out that he is one of 3 winners for the State History Award in the category of books, university, and commercial press. Guardians of Detroit takes viewers on a journey exploring different historic buildings in the Motor City while highlighting details which one would not notice while walking the streets below.
The Addison Township Library recently had the 6th annual Car and Cupcake Challenge. There was no shortage of award winners as amateur bakers and auto aficionados competed. Michelle Pope's chocolate cupcakes won first place in the adult baking competition, and in the youth baking contest, relative Logan Pope's cupcakes with sprinkles took first place, and on the car side, Don Olson's Ford station wagon Woody won first place. The event raised over $350 to help build a new 5,000 square foot library in Addison Township, and I know they've got more money besides that $350 there.
You, the members of the public, are being asked to complete surveys to help Oxford Community Television secure funding that's needed to keep the local public access station and its programming on the air. Between now and November 1st, residents of Oxford and Addison Townships, along with the villages of Oxford and Leonard, can participate in the Needs Assessment Survey, which consists of 6 yes or no questions. Copies are available at both township halls, the Oxford Village Office and the Oxford Township Parks and Recreation Administrative Office in Seymour Lake Park. The survey can also be found on the OCTV Facebook page. OCTV staff members and volunteers will be distributing the survey at high school sporting events and community events. Check it out.
Yeah, so number one, we need to get it back a little bit sooner than November 1st, so I messed up when I told CJ it was November 1st. Charter wants it back by November 1st. Charter wants to make sure the community wants us here before they give us further fees. So our franchise fees are being reduced, and so we will not be able to operate with that reduction. So we've asked for PEG fees, which is public, educational, and government fees. We've never asked for before. We've been in service since the 80s, 86 I believe. We've never asked for those fees before, which we have every right to ask for them. So we've asked Charter to put those fees in. It would be like $1 a month or $1.50 a month, depending on the size of your cable bill, but it's about $1 a month. So it'd be $12 a year to keep us on the air. Charter's giving us a bad time. They don't want to put those fees on there because it makes it look like an extra tax. So that's the explanation of why Charter doesn't want to do it. So Charter's asking us to jump through some hoops, and this is one of them. And we're doing our best. They didn't give us perimeters on what they wanted to see out of that survey, except for that they wanted to see if the community wanted us here. And the ironic thing is, everybody that we're talking to they're like, what? You can't go off the air? We love watching the news, or we love watching Minutes by Minutes, or whatever program they really like watching. But yet, and this is not a knock on them, but each municipality board, that's a small thing for them to worry about. So we're promoting it for the communities because the boards are overwhelmed. We're promoting getting that survey done. The people in the community want it, so I'm hoping that the boards want us to stay as well. It's just, we're really pushing. Otherwise, our funding can be cut down completely by February.
The years I've been with the station here, I've never seen this type of a financial crunch, on a station, and that's and they've never really taken this approach in the past.
No.
They provided the funding for us. Only recently did they decide to do this, and it is a big cut to the station. So we like your support out there, and if you'd be so kind to fill out the questionnaire, I think it'll help us.
Well, the reason for the funding cut is the FCC, as well as our own local government, state government, gave cable providers, which would be Charter, AT&T, and Comcast, the right to keep the franchise fees that they charged you people. And franchise fees are charged to you as a resident in order for us as a community to maintain the easements that they're in. Well, now they get to keep that money. They don't have to pay us to rent our easements in our communities. They get to keep the franchise fees, and you're losing out. Whether you have a television station in your community or not, some communities don't have a television station, and that's like $30,000 to $50,000 they're going to lose out of their general fund because the government told the cable providers they could keep it, and they don't have to pay rent for our property that they're on. They don't have to do anything. They just get to make more money. Across the country, the cable providers will be keeping $100 billion in 1 year. Yeah. Because the government said it's okay. So we really want to stay here. We love covering this community, and the way to do it is to help us by providing the answers to that survey, whether you want us here or not. We've gotten some negative comments of people of the community. They don't think that their money should be spent here, that it should go someplace else in the community. But what I'm telling you is that money that they're charging you is going to go back to them now. If it doesn't go to us, it's going to go back to the cable company. So, and plus some of the communities are keeping half of our funds anyhow, half of those franchise fees anyhow, to maintain whatever easements they have in their communities. So that's going to go away too. They're going to lose that money. We're going to lose our money.
According to surveys I've seen, though, that's far outnumbering those that are opposed to the station.
Oh, yeah, we've had a lot of positive, oh my goodness,
And I think our legislators, when they moved in that direction, they didn't realize the impact it was going to have on you folks out there, in a local sense. Just look at the sports programs that we cover for the kids and so forth. All the political
and
meetings.
The educational stuff that we do.
And how many times have the township requested video of certain meetings?
Of the meetings, right.
Because they didn't have, theirs up to par.
Yeah.
And
we're
we're going to
recorders
lose
with
all
history.
that if we're not careful. So we appreciate your support out there.
And you can also get those surveys here at the station, which is 2975 Seymour Lake Road, Suite A. Anyhow, that's it for Oxford News this week. If you'd like to learn more about these stories or others, you can pick up a copy of the Oxford Leader newspaper, or better yet, catch us on our website at occtv.org, on YouTube, and of course our regular cable channel Spectrum, which is Charter, Channel 191, and AT&T Channel 99.
And coming up soon, OCTV's very own Cody Wright with school sports and school news, with incorporating great topics with Alexis Ware. And you won't want to miss Auto Talk and Science in the News with Dave Kenny.
I'm Terry Stiles. Thanks for watching Oxford News this week, where we bring your news closer to home.
And I'm Elgin Nichols. Remember, always be kind to your friends and neighbors, and thanks for watching.
Welcome to Science in the News. I'm Dave Kenny, and these stories are taken from the publication New Scientist. In our first story, an investigation into the diversity of electric eels has produced quite a shock. Rather than just one species, there are actually 3 species of electric eels living in South America, and one of them generates a bigger voltage than any other bioelectric animal. Electric eels were first described 250 years ago by Carl Linnaeus, who gave them the species name Electrophorus electricus. They use their shocking power to hunt prey and defend themselves, while weaker electrical signals help them to navigate and communicate. David DeSantana at the Smithsonian Institution in Washington and colleagues studied 107 specimens, that is, from across the Amazon region, analyzing their genetics, morphology, and geographical spread. They discovered that there are 3 species with different distributions. The original species, E. electricus, in the northern highlands, E. voltii in the southern highlands, and E. varii in the lowland Amazon basin. E. voltii is the largest, growing up to 1.7 meters compared to 1 meter for the shortest E. electricus. The researchers measured the electric discharge generated by E. voltii at 860 volts, considerably higher than the 650 volts reported before. This makes it the strongest living bioelectricity generator we know of. These eels live in water with few dissolved minerals, meaning it has low conductivity, which might be why such a large voltage is necessary. A shock of this size would unlikely kill a human, but it would cause muscle contractions and painful numbing sensations, says DeSantana. It's like the effect of a law enforcement taser. E. electricus and E. voltii have a flatter head than E. varii, which may be better adapted to highland environments with fast-flowing water and rocky or sandy bottoms. The species also differ in the number of pores in their lateral lines, a system of sense organs on the side of the body. Genetic analysis suggests that E. varii lineage diverged from the other 2 species around 7.1 million years ago, with E. electricus and E. voltii splitting around 3.6 million years ago. Electric eels provided Alessandro Volta with the inspiration for the very first electric battery in 1800. If we don't know about the diversity of species alive today, we risk losing knowledge that could be valuable to us, says DeSantana. When a species become extinct, so does the health and safety of every human, because these species are genetic warehouses that may have a cure for diseases, he says. Wow. In our next story, they're the lucky few, people who can eat as much as they like without gaining weight. A new study suggests they can do this because their fat cells burn energy differently, a finding that could lead to new obesity treatments. Nell Geldof at the Nestle Institute for Health Sciences in Switzerland and her colleagues studied 30 men and women who remained very slim with BMIs of 18.5 or under, despite eating and exercising the same amount as the average person. By analyzing small fat samples sliced from their tummies, the researchers found that the people's fat cells have abnormally high expressions of genes involved in both breaking down and making fat. Their fat cells are also 40% smaller than those of normal weight people and contain greater numbers of more active mitochondria, the energy powerhouses of cells. The results suggest that naturally slim people are resistant to putting on weight because their fat cells burn lots of energy through what is known as a futile lipid cycle, says Geldof. This means their fat cells are stuck in a constant loop of breaking down and rebuilding fat molecules, a process that is powered by mitochondria. The reason why fat cells are smaller in these people may be that the lipid cycle, the futile lipid cycle that is, only builds up a small amount of fat before breaking it down, says Geldof, although further studies are needed to confirm this. In contrast, obese people often have faulty mitochondria in their fat cells, meaning they can't burn energy via the futile lipid cycle, says Sinhem Bodina at the University of Utah, who wasn't involved in the study. Several groups are currently investigating ways to restore mitochondrial activity and kickstart the futile lipid cycle in obese people in hope of driving weight loss, says Bodina. The recent findings in naturally slim people suggest they are on the right track, she says. Cold exposure has been shown to activate the futile lipid cycle, which helps explain the trend of wearing ice vests and having ice baths to slim down. But the strategy only works in normal weight people, not obese people, because obese individuals don't have the mitochondrial machinery that would be needed for this cycle to be initiated in the first place, says Bodina. Well, tests go on. Well, that's it for this edition of Science in the News. I'm Dave Kenny. Stay tuned to Oxford Community Television.
Hello everyone and welcome back to School News. I'm Alexis Ware. Last week was a special week for Clear Lake Elementary as their green team had their first meeting of the year on the 19th. Monthly meetings will be held from now until the end of the year. If you have a Clear Lake student and would like them to be a part of the team, contact the green team leader through the school. Last week, Oxford Elementary also had some fun at their family tailgate housed at the DA Playground. And finally, a pretty big event this past Sunday as Upland Hills Farm hosted their last Summer Sundays event. That event was put on specifically for the Girl Scouts in town, but was open to the public. Going forward, Upland Hills Farm has more events for the colder months. The next event is their Harvest Festival. Visit their site at uplandhillsfarm.com for more information. This week is really picking up in activities for the district, with homecoming weekend being only a week away. Tuesday, September 24th kicks off the week with Oxford High School's Academic Awards at 6:30. Wednesday is the OES Fun Run Kickoff Assembly at 2, as well as an OMS Back to School Bash starting at 3. This Friday, September 27th, is going to be the last Friday before homecoming weekend, and Kingsbury Country Day School is having a Hungry Library Lunch. Saturday, September 28th, Oxford Middle School is having their Color Run fundraiser on the OMS track, and the next day, Sunday, September 29th, Oxford High School is putting on their annual Powerpuff football game. In other news, Oxford is one of the 6 school districts in Michigan to receive a grant that will allow for electric school buses. Oxford will receive 2 electric buses for funds from Volkswagen as part of their settlement for violating the Clean Air Act. According to the Director of Transportation of Oxford Public Schools, Ann Whedon, 2 school buses will cost almost $700,000. The grant money from Volkswagen is paying 70%, while the district is covering the remaining 30%. The infrastructure is solely the responsibility of Oxford schools. Crossroads for Youth got a new trail last week. Neighboring college, Rochester University, came to help as part of their Warrior Serve program. Crossroads now have a freshly carved path in the middle of their field for students, staff, and residents. Be on the lookout for some interviews with Crossroads for Youth, as well as other interviews as we dive deeper into the school year on the Schooling Around segment. But that about does it for today. Next up is Cody Wright with School Sports.
What's going on, Wildcat fans? Cody Wright back here with this week's sports report. We had quite an exciting week, jam-packed with Oxford sports. So let's dive right in. Out of the gate, the equestrian team took its 20th consecutive district championship title. Talk about a dominant program. The district consisted of teams from Lapeer, Oakland, and Macomb counties, which has also been known to have a very competitive district. Huge congratulations to riders Olivia Dorman, Ava Holman, Juliana Miller, Zana Sayu, Riley Hodder, Emerson Lance, Mackenzie Rivera, Alina Hubbard, and Alyssa Main. So that's a huge accomplishment, 20 consecutive years. Also, the boys football team got their first win of the season, now holding a 2-1 record, taking down Bloomfield Hills on the road 42-21. Seniors Drew Carpenter and Matthew Pullman came up big for the Wildcats. Carpenter with 3 touchdowns and Pullman getting the first touchdown of the night. The boys started their season off with a 3-game start on the road. Now they return home to start their home schedule, taking on Lake Orion. We'll have the results on that next week. Also, boys soccer played this week on the 13th, taking on Anchor Bay. JV tying in the end 1-1. Varsity falling hard 4-0. On the 17th, the boys then took on Seaholm. JV this time struggling to get the win, falling 2-0. However, Varsity pulled it off in the end with a 3-1 final. The boys tennis team took on Avondale on the road on the 17th as well. The varsity club taking the win 5-3 and the JV club taking the loss 3-1. And lastly, the girls volleyball team took on Clarkston here at home on Thursday. We were there to cover the matches, both the JV and varsity, but I gotta say Clarkston was a very tough team. The JV team lost all 3 matches, 25-16, to 25-17 and 25-14. The girls had a few runs in there where we almost came back in the second match, but Clarkson just kept putting up points. The varsity also lost all 3 matches, 25-16, 25-21, and 25-15. Once again, in the second match, varsity was close for a while. The girls were only trailing by 1 at a point. However, Clarkson didn't let that last, and by the end, Clarkson came out victorious. We still have a lot of season left for these fall sports, so if your team is struggling, don't take it too hard. There is time to improve. Anyhow, that's about all we have for this week's report. For more info on these events, go to oxfordathletics.org. There is plenty of game breakdowns, final scores, and more all right there for you to check out. Once again, that is oxfordathletics.org. While you're at it, might as well check us out at occtv.org. All of our coverage of these events and more can be found on our YouTube page, which you can access through the website. Once again, that is occtv.org. If you happen to be at any of these sporting events, come look for us at OCTV. We will be walking around passing out a short 6-question yes or no survey. This survey will be used to hopefully help convince others that you value our services for your high school sports experience. The survey will be available until November 1st, and we greatly appreciate your feedback. You can also pick up a copy of the survey at the Parks and Rec office or here at the studio in Seymour Lake Park, or you can find it on our Facebook page. Once again, we greatly appreciate all of our supporters, and we hope to be around to serve the community for many years to come. Anyhow, that's all for me this week. I want to thank you all for watching and remind you all to tune in next time. But until then, I'm Cody Wright. Go Wildcats!
Welcome to this edition of Auto Talk. I'm Dave Kenny, and these stories are taken from the publication Automotive News. In our first story, the pressure on Rivian to nail the engineering, manufacturing, and quality of its electric vehicles just got amped up, way up, with the news September 18th that Amazon has placed an order for 100,000 delivery vehicles from the suburban Detroit startup. Rivian spokesman Amy Mass said the first Amazon delivery vehicles are expected to be on the road in 2021. She said work on developing delivery vehicle based on Rivian's battery electric powertrain and chassis has been underway for some time. The vehicle, most likely a van, would use the same basic architecture and power electronics planned for the R1T electric pickup and the R1S electric SUV. But Mass said it would have a redesigned suspension system, a different interior, and Amazon-specific application software. Rivian has not built or sold its first vehicle yet, but the Plymouth, Michigan startup is backed by at least $1.5 billion in recent investments from Amazon, Ford Motor Company, and Cox Automotive. Rivian is retooling the former Mitsubishi plant in Normal, Illinois, and expects to start production of the pickup and SUV next year. Amazon CEO Jeff Bezos at a press event in Washington said the Rivian order would help the giant online retailer meet its pledge to become net carbon neutral by 2040. Amazon's current delivery fleet uses internal combustion engines. Mast said the Rivian's goal is is to have 10,000 of the electric delivery vehicles on the road by 2022. When all 100,000 vehicles are on the road, it would prevent 4 million metric tons of carbon dioxide from entering the atmosphere each year. I'm Dave Kenny, and as always, may the wind be at your back as you cruise down life's highways.